We have some horrifying news from NBC News here about what's happening in Africa. They report Somalia's prime minister announced Saturday that 110 people have died from hunger in the past 48 hours in a single region as a severe drought threatens millions of people across the country. The United Nations estimates that 5 million people in this horn of Africa need aid amid warnings of a full-blown famine. Somalia was one of 4 regions singled out by the UN Secretary General last month in a $4.4 billion aid appeal to avert catastrophic hunger and famine, along with northeast Nigeria, South Sudan, and Yemen. About 363,000 acutely malnourished children in Somalia need urgent treatment and nutrition support, including 71,000 who are severely malnourished. Okay, the year is 2017. I feel like that's all the commentary I want to do on this. It's 2017. Cut out. Because that's a crazy thought, man. I mean, that's a really wild thought. The year is 2017, and there are people who are starving. There's hunger. There's a famine from a drought. I mean, that's... The drought part is expected and predicted because of climate change. You know, we haven't done much to address that now, haven't we? There was the Paris Agreement. It fell short of becoming a Paris Treaty, but it's the Paris Agreement. And it's supposed to, hey, let's, cut emissions and try to really fight climate change here. But even the goal of cutting the emissions isn't enough. It's never enough. We really need to transfer to a complete green economy within the next 10 or 15 years, really, in order to really combat climate change in a serious way. But we haven't done that. Now we're seeing drought. Now we're seeing famine. Now we're seeing an increase in natural disasters. And the result is hunger. I mean, to have people die because they don't have enough food when, there's enough food, just the distribution isn't there, So something feels wrong about the fact that at the end of the week, I might have some leftovers that I'm not sure if it's still good or not and I can throw it out. But meanwhile, people are fucking dying. Something's deeply wrong with that system, man. And what's really weird to think about is we're bombing Somalia right now. Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, North Africa, Somalia, Libya, North Africa, and one other which I'm currently blanking on. Yeah, I'm blanking on it. No big deal. You guys will remember what it is. But, yeah, because Boko Haram and Al-Shabaab are also a major issue. And so we decided, well, let's bomb them also. So think about it. We're bombing them because they're killing innocent people. There's no doubt that hunger is going to kill more innocent people. But we don't get the same kind of headlines and coverage. People aren't talking about, oh my God, fucking listen to this number. 363,000 acutely malnourished children in Somalia alone. When you add Yemen into the equation, it's millions. It's millions. Acutely malnourished. 71,000 who are severely malnourished. So we could conceivably lose 71,000 people. And that's just in Somalia. I haven't even included Yemen. Millions more malnourished there. On the brink of famine, if not already in famine. You would think that 71,000 people dying would get the headlines, would get the endless coverage, would be called a scandal. But no. What gets called a scandal? When terrorists kill 100 people, maybe 200 people. Now, to be clear, I'm not downplaying that. I mean, that's a serious, serious issue, and terrorists are terrorists, and they're affecting the region in a horrific way. And, I side 100% with the governments in these various regions to fight Boko Haram and Al-Shabaab and all these, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all of them. I gotcha. It's a serious issue, and it deserves coverage. But when 71,000 people are on the verge of dying from hunger, which is totally preventable if we just have the aid and we get it there on time, that doesn't get any coverage. It's so sad because that shows you the media's sensationalism bias. When you see a guy on TV who's got a mask covering his face, he's got a giant gun, and he's screaming Allahu Akbar, you go, oh my God, it's so scary, and oh my God, they're going to kill everybody. But then the thing that's actually killing everybody, 71,000 people who are about to die because they don't have enough food, that barely gets a mention. Maybe it's on the bottom scroller of the screen and it says, oh yeah, maybe a drought and maybe famine in Somalia, and anyway, let's move along. But that's going to kill more people. And we can actually fight that easier. So why are we dropping real bombs when we can be dropping food bombs? Like, it's always unilateral U.S. military intervention. We got to go do it because we got to save innocent people. That's the argument they make, even though it's not really about that. It's about natural resources and things like that. But if it were really about saving all these people, you shouldn't be dropping military bombs. You should be dropping giant aid packages. The UN is trying to fight it. There are other human rights organizations that are really doing their best, charity work, charity groups that are doing their best to fight it. And I'm not trying to downplay what they're doing. What I'm saying is we have a fundamental problem with our media, they don't get outraged at the things that are genuinely outrageous. And we have a problem with our politicians and our mindset, where the only time we really talk about something seriously is if we can bomb it, is if we can fight it, because we have the military-industrial complex in this country. How about a food-industrial complex? Or government food complex. I'm trying to come up with a witty way of saying it and failing, but that's what we need, And I'm somebody, by the way, who's actually not the biggest in favor of international aid. Like, I'm a little bit of a more libertarian on that than a liberal and a progressive. I feel like there are many progressives who are way more in favor of more international aid than I am. But I mean, I'm not an idiot. So I know if there's fucking 71,000 people who are about to die, 363,000 people who are acutely malnourished, millions more in Yemen who just don't have food, but we have the food. Yeah! I would have either the UN and other organizations do it, and I would help immediately, or I would, go drop giant aid packages there. But that's not considered. That's not on the table. That doesn't really occupy time in our mind because it's not sensationalistic, and we can't, whip ourselves up into a militaristic fervor over it. So maybe we need a whole realignment of our priorities and to understand that probably the biggest threats facing us, climate change, drought and famine. And the other day, there was a headline, over 1 million people die every year in India because of pollution. Could you imagine terrorists killed over 1 million people in India every year? The reaction that we'd have? But when it's pollution and it's just a slow killer and it's an everyday thing, we don't even care enough to muster up the effort to say, we're just going to regulate everything to take the pollution out of the air. But that's the answer. We know that's the answer. So those are the real killers, and we rarely talk about them, but we should talk about them.